guys are in for a treat. I am your moderator, KB. I'm an entertainment journalist for Comics Beat and Nerdophiles. I've also been featured in Complex, Nerdist, so on and so forth. But the reason why we're here is we are going to be joined by the fabulously talented Rachel Skarsten, who you may know from Birds of Prey, or a personal joy of mine. I actually adore holiday movies, so you might know her from Marry Me at Christmas. Or what we're here for, her insanely delicious role as Alice, formerly known as Beth Kane, on the canceled too soon, in my personal opinion, Batwoman. So welcome Rachel to the stage.
My mom, we were on a mother-daughter vacation, and Hallmark had offered me the film, and so I went down to the beach and I said, "Oh Mom, I'm going to be in a Hallmark Christmas movie." And my mom literally, she like put both her hands on my shoulders like this, and she was like, "You finally made it." I was like, "Wow, that's what it took."
That is me as a mother, 100%. I'd be like, "Finally, it's paid off. You got a holiday movie."
I know. Well, you're going to be very happy because I just did another Hallmark Christmas movie. Yes. I just finished it like 4 days ago. Literally.
Awesome. Oh, I'm so excited. I honestly want to put up Christmas lights right now and just be my true self.
Oh, me too. I like play Christmas music on like October 31st. It's on.
Yes. Okay, so welcome to FanX, and thank you so much for joining us. So first off, well, obviously a lot of people here know you as the complicated, kind of villainous Alice. As I mentioned, your first foray into the DC universe was actually as Dinah Lance for Birds of Prey.
How many people actually watched that show when it was on the air? Oh my god. And yet, none of us have aged a day. It's so weird. But that was 21 years ago. Isn't it crazy? 21 years. But I say this all the time. I feel like if that show had been on 10 years after it would have had 7 years on the air. It was just like a little too soon, I think.
It was, unfortunately. But tell us a little bit about what it is about the DC lore that keeps you coming back.
I don't know. I mean, it's like a good thing to have. DC thankfully likes me, I guess. But it's funny because I also have, is this okay, by the way? Because it feels really loud in my ear, but I just want to make sure I'm not breaking eardrums. Okay. But it sort of seems like, oh yeah, I've done all this DC, but I have auditioned. Like, I used to have this joke that Greg Berlanti, he would bring me in to test for a role if he wanted the other girl to get it. He'd be like, oh yeah, bring Rachel Skarsten. Because I went in for Arrow, for the role Katie Cassidy ended up getting, and they didn't want me to do Black Canary again, so then that didn't happen. Then I went in I tested against Danielle Baker. Then I tested with Katie Lotz for the role that Jess actually ended up getting. So like I have been through the gambit, so by the time Batwoman came around, I was like, I forget this, I'm not gonna get this role. So I just made this tape with this actor Spencer McPherson who had been on Rain with me, and I think we did 1 take or 2 takes of each scene, and then he was like, which one do you want to send? I was like, I don't know, you just choose, doesn't matter. And then they pinned me for it, which means, you know, they're really interested in you and they wanted me to come down to LA and meet the producers. And even then, I was like, yeah, I've been here before. I honestly think it played in my favor because by that point, I just really didn't think I was gonna get the part, so I just went wild, in that audition. I was like, doesn't matter, you can do whatever, I'm not gonna get it anyway. And then I got it, and I was so shocked. So, anyway.
It pays off though, right? Because I mean, Alice is the kind of character where you had the flexibility to kind of go wild in every single way.
Yeah, literally and figuratively. They really let me do whatever I wanted. In the beginning, I was terrified because when you play a character like that, you're never sure how far is too far. you know, she needed to be this larger-than-life character, but you can take it too far, and it's not good, but then maybe not take it far enough. And so I remember we did the pilot, and the whole time I thought I was going to get fired, and because no one said anything to me. Like, I was just doing my thing, and it was like radio silence. And I called my agent at the end, and I was like, they're going to fire me, I'm fired. And then the pilot got picked up, and I remember everyone was like, they really loved Alice, and the test groups loved Alice, and I thought they were like pranking me. But then around episode 7, I realized that they trusted me, and yeah, I would just start, I mean, I've told this story many times, but I would just do things to make the crew laugh, and then it would end up in the show, like me licking the pepper. That was not for public consumption. It was literally just me trying to get our A camera operator to laugh, and then we were watching it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they put that in the show.
You're like, why would you keep this? I was just joking. And they're like, yes, more of this, more of that.
Totally.
So I know that Alice is not necessarily a character that most people may take advice from, but I found in season 3 her progression with Ryan. She was kind of the voice of reason in a lot of ways, which was like,
that's what I'm saying.
Wildly unexpected.
Ryan liked to play like she didn't like Alice, but she did.
She did.
Yeah, and actually I think Alice kind of liked her as well. And that was really good for Javicia and I because we actually liked each other on a person. So we used to joke sometimes we'd have to be mean to each other. Afterwards we'd be like, okay, but don't mean it. We don't mean it. You know?
Like, I'm so sorry. It's not true.
Yeah, totally.
But it's so interesting. So for you as Rachel, is there anything that you took away from playing Alice? Like any advice really that you could take away from playing Alice that you could apply to your own life? Because I do find that she definitely had some sound judgment at times, not all the time.
Yeah, the murder part wasn't great. I definitely
just a little, you know, the moral corruption was a little.
Yeah. I mean, I think I really admired how smart Alice was, how resourceful Alice was, how like her ability to overcome and persevere. And ultimately, like, I mean, her dedication often to the wrong things, but her just insane dedication to whatever she believed in. But at the same time, was open to growing and changing because I think we saw this incredible arc with Alice over the 3 seasons, and she was not the same person at the end as she was at the beginning. So, no, I mean, I really loved Alice, and yeah, you know, obviously she did some bad things. But but those aside, there was a lot I could learn from Alice.
I mean, if you could say though, once she was committed to love, she was fully committed to love.
Yeah, well, I mean, because how could you not be committed to Nathan? He was so hot.
He's very attractive, so there's no doubt in my mind that she could be committed to love. Even with her dad, like when she realized, you know, like she wanted to be loved so bad that like, once she did love someone, she's willing to stay.
I know her relationship with her dad always broke my heart because she just wanted love from him so much, and you know, for his own reasons, it was hard for him. I think her relationship with Kate and her relationship, even at the end with Mary, you know, it was yeah, Alice is definitely someone who you'd, I guess, in a careful way want to have in your corner.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, because if you're in a fight, you know, she is wild enough. She is enough of a wild card to do anything for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that a good thing? I don't really know. So what was the most challenging episode for you to film as Alice over the course of the 3 seasons?
That's a good question. I think it was the episode where she was locked in the basement in season 1 with Mouse and the laughing, or not laughing gas, the Scarecrow's gas. That was physically and emotionally challenging, and I think it was towards the end of our season, and it had been a really long, hard season, as first seasons always are. But we did a lot of nights and that, so I was just exhausted. I used to joke that the writers just love to see me be tortured, you know. And I remember the writer of that episode, Natalie, who now is the showrunner of Gotham Knights, we had this joke that like, she was like, honestly, like I just write these episodes and I'm not really thinking of it, and then I'm on set and I'm feeling really guilty because like you're on the ground and you're crying and you're tied up. Like, yeah, it's all fun and games in the writer's room, isn't it? But I also loved those scenes because I think it was this breaking point for Alice where, you know, she really, just all her sadness and everything, all the desperation and all the wounds from her childhood came out, and so I just kind of did it, and I will say it was very cathartic. At the end I was like, wow, I just really got a lot out there. It was like therapy on crack. You know?
And you're like, therapy, but I got paid for it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So if there was one thing, if you had the opportunity to just kind of bring Alice back for one final kind of hurrah, because obviously it was cut too short, what would that arc look like for you? You know, what would be kind of the ideal, and you were able to wrap it up in the way that you wanted to?
So, I was sad that we didn't get any warning to have a proper ending. I mean, I did feel, in a way, Alice got an ending. I know that the plan for Alice had been, I can say this now because they don't employ me. The plan for Alice had been for her to come back because Mary was going to be in trouble, and Alice was going to sacrifice her life for Mary. So season 4 would have been Alice's last season, which I always kind of known that she wasn't a character that was going to last forever on the show. And if she was, she would turn into Red Alice most likely and be a bit of a different incarnation. But I really liked that. I thought that was really beautiful. So yeah, either that or bring Nathan back.
It's always bring Nathan.
It's always bring Nathan back. He's so lovely too. He's such a great guy.
But that is interesting. I mean, just because their arc as sisters, you know, like we're finding out that they're sisters, had always been so intriguing to me. And so I think for season 4, having her kind of sacrifice herself for her sister ultimately.
Totally. And Nicole and I were so happy that we got to work together because it's like I murdered her mom, you know, and then we just never dealt with it. It was just kind of like, oh, hey, you, like. And so we were really happy to kind of bring that full circle and have some healing in that relationship. And at the end, we were kind of the last 2 Canes standing, so we figured we needed to, you know, hash it out.
Okay, so now that the series is over, what's an on-set secret that you can finally share that you probably wanted to, like during the course of it? Like, what is something wild and kooky that happened on set, or something that is just mesmerizing that aided in the on-screen magic that we, you know, get to see as we replay all of the episodes from seasons 1 to season 3?
I mean, I guess I've been kind of an open book, like Jimmy Snows used to tease, but because she's actually bad at spoilers too. I feel like she throws me under the bus to like make herself like so that the focus is off her, and I do the same to her clearly right now. But yeah, no, oh my gosh, I'd always dread interviews because I just had like verbal diarrhea about stuff, and they'd be like, you can't say that. But no, I mean there wasn't really anything. I mean I guess I didn't do any of my own stunts. That was all my stuntable, so she made me look so cool. Javicia did pretty much all of her own stunts, so that was very impressive. But it was a really good group of people, you know, everyone was super lovely, and there were some people I was really sad to see go, like Sam Littlefield, who I absolutely adore, who's actually from Utah, by the way. I know, from Salt Lake City. And yeah, no, I guess I don't have any salacious secrets. I wore a wig, but I think everybody knows that. Yeah, okay.
Yes, I look very similar to the Alice that we see here.
Yay! Yes, very similar.
So is there any, like, one piece of advice that you could take from your time on Batwoman that you will take into your next foray, which honestly, selfishly, I hope eventually is another DC project, but...
I will not choose a nighttime vigilante again. Oh my goodness. Sounds really fun on paper. But I just became like a nocturnal. It was nuts. We all did. It was bizarre to like be up at 10, you know? So that's probably like the biggest piece of advice. But also I feel like growing up I really loved Batman and like that whole part of DC, you know, that was so appealing to me, and I feel like I've been really lucky to do 2 different shows within that wheelhouse. So yeah, I mean, I kind of lucked out. I feel like asking for anything else would be greedy.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, if you had a third time's a charm to play a DC character, which one would it be?
Well, obviously I just play Batman, but you know, nobody knocking on my door for that job, so.
Not yet, but you know, the time may come. Who knows? So, oh guys, you guys can start lining up if you have any questions to ask Rachel. Forgot to say that piece. So now that Batwoman is over, and I know that you just finished a holiday movie, which can you share the title for?
I mean, I think so. It's coming out in November. So it's called The Royal Nanny. Hopefully it'll still be called The Royal. We'll watch it comes out. It's like mistletoe time. Yeah. But I play. I'm actually have an English accent. I play a royal nanny, but who's actually an MI7 agent undercover, who obviously falls in love with the prince. And I'd say I'd spoil the ending for you, but you know, it's pretty formulaic, so you probably know how that's going to go.
We know what the ending is going to be, and yet I'm still intrigued. And I'm still going to watch it because I'm like, what? Not an MI7 agent. Who's also a nanny, but also, you know, like, what is happening in this film? Definitely gonna watch. 20 out of 10.
Well, and it was really fun because my co-star from Rain, Dan Gionette, who played Adelaide's brother in the show, he was my love interest, which actually was all fun and games until we had to kiss on the second last day, and then we were both like sweating, and like, you know, really good friends, like his wife's there, his kid's there, and I was like, this is awful. But it wasn't as bad as having to kiss Ben Garrett on Rain, because he is like my really, really good mate, and we had to like do more than a Hallmark kiss, you know, and that was torture. It's always better to kiss someone on the first day when you don't know them, because then it gets weird.
And then also, if it's on the first date, you just gotta go to work. And then you're like, oh, there's nothing left. Like, this is no longer awkward because this is day 1.
Exactly. I mean, the ship had sailed with Dan and I knew each other for like 6 years, but anyway. Hello.
I actually have a question on Lost Girl.
Yeah, shoot. I love talking about Lost Girl.
Do you have any sort of like scenes, memories that you can share that you had from time with any of the cast?
On Lost Girl? Oh yeah, no, I mean too many even to mention. Like, that's the thing. All my other shows I loved the cast, but Lost Girl was great because there was an actor, Paul Amos, who was such a shithead. And like loved pranking almost as much as I do, probably more actually. And so I also told this story, so forgive me if you heard this, but this was my favorite one. So Paul loves ghost peppers. Like he loves like those like hot peppers, and he would like put them on things and then like be like, want some watermelon to people, and it would like be lined with ghost pepper. And so on the second last day, it's a really chill filming day, and at lunch, Chris had brought like Coronas or something, and we were gonna have beer like on lunch. And so Paul's like, yeah, I bought some ghost peppers. We should pepper them on Luke Billick's drink. This poor Luke Billick. He's like 19 years old, which by the way is legal drinking age in Canada. And he's like, this is his first season on the show. So what do? We're all evil demons. We invite him to the trailer to have a beer. And he's really excited. And so we're sitting there, and Paul's lined the top of his Corona with a ghost pepper. And so he takes a sip, and like we're all chatting, and then you can see he's like like this. So then he takes another sip, and he's like, oh, it's like, wow, this Corona's spicy. At this point, Paul can barely keep it together, and he's like excused himself to go to the bathroom or something. And now his lips are like on fire. But then, all of a sudden, his face starts puffing up. Like his lips like start getting really big, and like this side of his face starts getting, no, I know, and we're just on lunch, right? Like we have to film in like 10 minutes, and we're like, oh no, we killed him, we killed him. So then we're like, what do we do? What do we do? And so Chris and I were like, we'll just put some yogurt on his face. So we get this yogurt and we're like putting it all over his face and trying to like bring it down, I don't know. And poor Luke, he's like got yogurt on his face, he can't breathe. I can't even believe he still talks to me. So anyway, somehow the yogurt actually did kind of work and the swelling went down, but also Chris and I were like, we're gonna get fired. We stopped production. So needless to say, we told Paul, we were like, that's the end of the ghost pepper, so we can't do this anymore. Which Paul listened to for 24 hours until he ghost peppered me in the last scene. So in that whole scene, I'm like, my mouth is on fire. Yeah, in the doll. But it was just such a fun show. Like we would do stuff like that all the time. Or one time we attached garbage to Paul's chair and just he came back, he's like a throne of garbage. Yeah, I loved it. It was great.
I love that Paul learned not a single lesson.
No. But also, like, where was he when we were putting yogurt trying to solve the problem? Like, he was just laughing in the bathroom, you know?
So I was wondering, besides Alice, who's your favorite role that you played? All the characters you played?
I mean, Tamsin was really wonderful. Also, that show was the first
Which one?
series, yeah, that I had done since I came, because after Birds of Prey I took a really long break and I went to college and I traveled and I wanted to have some time to do certain rites of passage in life that I felt I couldn't do later on and have the same experience. But then when I came back, it wasn't easy to get a job and people didn't know where I had been for 5 years and they were like, I'm sorry, who are you? And didn't care. And so I was so grateful for that job and that experience and those people and then Rain I would have done for 100 years. The costumes and the sets and the accents and like just the people on that were so nice as well. So yeah, I'd say also I always think it's fun like with Alice and with Queen Elizabeth. The first couple episodes, I felt like I was going to vomit every time I would go on set because I was so nervous that like, am I going to do this right? And that's so fun as an artist because I think the minute you stop being a little scared of what you're doing or trying to create, you probably need to go try something new and stretch your boundaries. And so I think those were probably my two takes. That's a great question.
Would you go into directing? Is that something?
People ask me that all the time. I have no interest in directing. I feel like I would like to be on the other side, like on the production side, that interests me. But directing is like harder than acting even. Like you gotta be prepared, and it like Cam did it on Batwoman, Megan did it on Rain, and they're not only acting, but they're prepping an episode, and then they're like directing themselves, and it was nuts. And I actually did a seminar once for people in the film industry, and it was an opportunity to try a different like job within the industry, so it was like a retreat. And I pulled directing, and it was hell. Never do that again. So much respect for directors. Blessing.
If you had to pick between an anti-hero like Tamsin or a villain like Alice, which is more fun?
Oh, the villain like Alice, yeah. I mean, Tamsin was really fun, so it's hard to compare her and Alice, and actually I stole a lot of Tamsin for Alice. But I always think it's the most fun to play the villain. If I had a choice, I would always play the villain. I'm up in Hallmark trying to like make her a villain. heroine. Stop trying to make her mean.
You're like, but she is also a spy, so therefore she
It's
could
like, but she also has another secret layer. And they're like, no.
So your portrayal of Alice is how I tricked my mother into watching Batwoman. Because I had it on Monday and she's like, oh god damn it, she's compelling. So we watched the first 2 seasons in like a day and a half. Livid when it was canceled. I was real sad to make that call. But my question is, who from the show would you have liked to have worked with more on the show? Who that you had scenes with, but you're like, oh man, I wish we could have done more.
So this is partially because of our characters, because the characters were so on the opposite end of the spectrum that it was really fun for me to play off of her. But more for personal reasons, Megan Tandy, Sophie, just because she was like probably my best friend on the show. I adore her, and I just wanted to be around her. So every time we had a scene together, it was just so much fun. And we didn't really work together a lot. You know, I would have said Nicole too, but then we got all of this time together, which was so nice. So yeah, I have to say Mego.
That's funny because Megan is actually how I tricked my mother into watching Teen Wolf.
You tricked your mother into watching a lot of things.
Tell me your secrets. How do you do it? Hello.
So you're going to be in that new Hallmark movie, and it's called Annie for Christmas, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay. If you were to go back and reshoot that, would you say to the people you were babysitting, don't make me go to my dark side as Alex, because you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Would you say something like that?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I guess if I'm like pretending like it's reality, no, because they were royalty. So I'd probably get in a lot of trouble. But yeah, I actually used to be a nanny when I first came back to LA, and I was trying, you know, to get back into the industry and stuff, and I would nanny kids. And I remember one kid was like, you know, they were oftentimes from very wealthy, privileged families, and this one kid, such a little shithead, and he said to me, he was like, well, you can't make me do this, like, because I'll just tell my mom. And I was like, fine, let's call your mom right now. Let's just get her on the phone, I'll tell her. And I remember he just looked at me and I was like, you're gonna challenge me? And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, what am I doing? but so yeah, I think sometimes it's that kind of love is good love, yes.
And then I was just going to say, I guess you could say reality can be whatever I want it to be, you know, just go with that.
Yeah. And then I get fired.
This is a very different film.
Yeah. This is actually, though Dan and I started filming this, we would kind of like, we'd finish the scene and then we'd kind of like keep going with the scene, and we had this joke that it was like the other royal nanny, and that we were going to put it on YouTube, you know?
Just the other cuts.
Yeah.
Started a YouTube web series of the other
The other royal nanny.
So I have to say, you know, Batwoman was such an incredible history-making show, obviously, that is now forever in DC canon, especially with having a Black lesbian in the fold as Batwoman now. So talk a little bit about what it means to you to be a part now of that history and such an impactful show for so many people watching.
Well, I mean, a big deal. Like, it was a big deal when we started because pre-Javicia, because it was the first lesbian superhero. But then when Javicia came, it felt even bigger, you know? And she had to deal with a lot taking on that role, which was unfortunate. But you know, this is gonna sound so silly to quote Brad Pitt from Moneyball, but there's this quote in the movie that I love, and it says it's at the end, and the Boston Red Sox are offering him this big job, and he's like, yeah, but I don't know, like, I got so much crap for everything I did, and the guy says to him, he's like, the first one through the ball always gets bloody, and I love that quote, and, you know, Javicia just did it with such grace, and I was so stoked to get to be part of it, and to get to watch her do that. And yeah, I feel like it's always cool to be a part of a first. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, like even Ruby being the first.
100%.
And having you guys be these polar opposite twins. So
So different. And yet, I say all the time that if Beth had not gone over and Kate had been in the position that Beth had, would it have been the same? And Kate would have been evil and Beth would have been Batwoman, because they were so similar and they both had light and darkness in them, but because of their life circumstances, to survive or to thrive or whatever, sort of different parts of that personality was sort of amplified. And Ruby and I talked a lot about that. Yeah, so I think I should have lost my train of thought. That happens sometimes.
I don't know. I'm going to argue that in season 1, when they did the flashbacks of the twins, I found Kate to be worse. Like, honestly, like the worst twin. Like, she was always getting into trouble. I was kind of like...
Exactly. Yeah, imagine what Kelly and Kate would have been if her moms hadn't been in the freezer with her in a, like, cell. Not great, I'm telling you that.
Boy, if the rules were reversed.
Yeah, totally.
So you mentioned producing. If you could produce anything in the world, if you're starting out of the gate and you have to produce kind of whatever you wanted, what would it be? It would be that movie where you're a nanny, but also
it would be
you're back.
the other royal nanny. Yeah, yeah, who's evil? The evil nanny. Actually, I am producing something now, which I'm very excited about. Yes, it's in development. I don't know how much I can actually say about it, but it's another sort of strong female lead based on a graphic novel that has a lot of history to it, with kind of a twist that we've done on it to modernize it. So I'm excited to see what happens about that, and I will obviously say about it when I can. I mean, I guess it's on IMDb. We partnered with a really great production company, Camping Area, so you can creep IMDb and see what it is. But I can't be recorded saying it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so kind of not on the Batwoman thing again, going back to Lost Girl.
Yes.
I was kind of really upset that Tamsin and Ellie didn't wind up together. That's how much I appreciate it.
I really appreciate that, because like Zoe and her were fire, and I was always like, you're cheering for me? Like, not Zoe?
But I was curious, what was it like going from like a very kind of fluid, modern character to Rain? Because you were done with Lost Girl in 2015.
Totally, we were basically back to back. I went very quickly from Lost Girl to Rain, and actually, oh my goodness, so many times in the early episodes, like, they would come up to me and they'd be like, Rachel, the director says just stop rolling your eyes so much. And I'd be like, Tamsin strikes again. So, I mean, that's the thing, I think. You play these characters and they linger with you for a while, even after the show is over. I realized with Rain, I would have this English inflection to how I was speaking for months after that show was done, because I was just so used to speaking in an English accent, which I still do when I'm trying to get a reservation, because honestly, Americans love a good English accent. Table's always mine. It's amazing. Yeah, I know. I call it my Canadian accent. They're like, get out of here, we have no tables for you. But yeah, I think that was probably the biggest thing, was because Tamsin was so loose and uncontrolled in terms of her movements and her facial expressions, and Queen Elizabeth had to be so much more controlled and calculated in a way. So that was probably it. Thank you. Me too. Yeah, actually, it's been talked about many times. Even recently, it was talked about And I keep saying to them, like, Anna and I were talking about it, I was like, but dude, I'm so dead. Like, I mean, it's so clear that I'm like really dead. Like, last life dead, like disintegrated dead. I was like, what am I gonna do?
There's always a will in TV, I found.
I said I could play my daughter.
So,
Oh, hi.
My question is, do you have like a main takeaway from playing Alice, like either something it taught you about yourself or a life lesson? Obviously, she does spend a lot of time being a villainous, so it's weird to say, did being a villain teach you anything about yourself? But it's very, again, it's a very complex character, so this is kind of what main takeaways you like that character.
Yeah, I think a thing about Alice that honestly I tried to play, but I think, you know, when something happens to you and there's a sadness in your life, no matter how much you try to mask it, it bleeds through, you know, because it needs to get out and it needs to be dealt with. It's one of the things I always found so fascinating about Alice, because she works so hard to mask these things, but they just flowed out of her, and everyone else around her could see it. Sometimes she couldn't even see it herself. And it did make me at times wonder, like, what are the things that I've tried to put into a dark place, and, you know, because I don't think that anyone else would want to see it, or, and just learning through her, it's okay to be vulnerable, to be one's authentic self, to, you know, the people who really love you, which I think Alice saw, they're gonna love you. I mean, literally, no matter what, she killed people. So, I really loved that about her, and I hope that's something that everyone takes away from her, I guess. That's a really good question. Thank you.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're right. Like, there was always still someone who loved her, you know, whether it was the
my gosh.
matter.
Yeah, he really loved her. He was amazing, by the way. He came on for like one episode and just slayed it. And I fell for him because his first scene was like in the auditorium, and there are hundreds of extras, and it was like, I can't even imagine going onto a show and just being like, all right, go, you know, and he had to like do this huge character, and he just did it effortlessly. It was amazing. It was really, really lovely.
I mean, honestly, he had like such a fabulous personality. I'm not going to say I was rooting for him, but like while I was watching, I was kind of like, oh, I like this guy. I like him a little bit. I like their dynamic. You know, even though they weren't working properly together. But
true, but I kind of hope he'd stick around, because that's the other thing. I loved seeing Alice with people who were like crazier than her, you know, because usually Alice was the craziest person in the room, let's be real. But then like a couple times in Arkham or whatever, where there'd be someone who was just so off the chain, like Gabe Mann's character, he was a bit crazier than her, and just Alice's reaction to him, and like her sort of superiority to him, like it was always so funny to me. Like she'd be like, well, you're really nuts, like, you know, it's like the pot calling the kettle black. So I liked that.
it is always saying something when Alice is like, you're a bit too crazy, you need to relax.
Oh, for sure. That you need a therapist at that point. You really need to take a look in the mirror and be like, I need some help. Alice thinks you're crazy.
So who do you think Alice could go toe-to-toe with in terms of villain? Like, who would be, I guess, kind of her biggest matchup in the DC universe?
People always compared her to Harley Quinn. I feel like that would be a really interesting matchup to see the two of them together.
Harley is unhinged.
Yeah, for sure. So probably her, actually, I think.
I really want to see that. I would love to see that on screen. So any more questions before we wrap up? Because I know we're actually doing time right now. Oh, I like this.
Hello.
So, on Batwoman, what do you think about the whole relationship with Mouse and all the masks?
relationship between
with mouse?
with masks.
Mouse.
Oh, mouse. What did it was really gutless what she did to him in the end, if I'm being honest. And that scene was so hard to film because I adore Sam, and it really felt like we were in the trenches together in the first season, you know? I mean, we literally were in the basement together being drugged and dragged across the floor. And so it was really sad for me when he left, and then it was so nice when he came back, albeit as a corpse, but I'll take what I can get. But I thought that relationship was really fascinating because obviously Alice was the one who was in control of that relationship, but at the same time, she did, I think, really love Mouse, and he had been there for her throughout the whole time that Kate wasn't. So there's this whole like layer to their relationship that, in a way, he had over Kate, but obviously, ultimately, you know, Kate was the love. I always thought Kate was the love of Alice's life. So no one was ever gonna win out over Kate. You know. In fact, we had this joke that it was like, were we lovers? You know, sometimes I remember in one of the scripts, like I said to Caroline, I was like, what's going on here? Because it was Alice caresses Kate's lip, and I was like, how do I do that in a sisterly way? Honestly, I don't have a sister, but like, I'm not doing that with my brother, I'll tell you that much. Totally.
It was kind of an obsession that she had, though, and I think
100%.
just because they were separated so early on that, you know, psychologically, she really never fully recovered. But it's interesting because with Mouse, they had like this very intense codependent relationship. Like, even though she was in control, there were like parts of herself that she allowed him to see that she wouldn't allow anyone else. And so,
100%.
it was an interesting dynamic for sure. So I too was actually kind of sad when it ended because I was just so used to them kind of moving in tandem, if that makes sense.
I know, plus Sam's just like, he's such a lovely, funny human being. Although I think he was probably okay with leaving because, so he had a prosthetic on his face, obviously. But they would have to make it look wet all the time. So they would put KY jelly on his face. Oh, and honestly, sometimes like it was so bad. Like they would just come, they'd be like shellacking, like slapping it on his face, and like, and he would, you know, how he'd have to like pull the face off like this, right? So he had these like hair extensions, and he'd like pull it off, but then his hair would get caught all over the KY jelly. And it was just like a disaster. Like, and it would be hot outside, he'd be sweating, and so yeah, you know, it was probably time. It was time.
Like,
Yeah.
I never want to see another tube of you.
I know. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I think if no one else has any questions, we are at time. But thank you so much for. Oh, you do. I'm so sorry.
Can you what? Yeah, sure. It's all yours. That's so sweet.